and stand by. Okay, we are live. Have a great meeting.
Thank you, Casey Miller. It is Monday, April 12th, 2021. It is the regular meeting of the Lincoln County Board of Commissioners, and we begin with the roll call. Commissioner Jacobson is here. Commissioner Hall, that's me, is here, and I am presiding in the absence of Commissioner Doug Hunt, who's excused today, but with two of the three commissioners present, that does constitute a quorum. Our next item of business is under recognition and proclamation. We have a resolution proclaiming April 2021 as Child Abuse Awareness and Prevention Month in Lincoln County. So, Commissioner Jacobson, I'd like to call on you to read the proclamation and then introduce our guests.
Yes, I'd love to do that. I'm hoping they can bring me, thank you, to the proclamation to read. All right, thank you. Proclaiming April 2021 as Child Abuse Awareness and Prevention Month in Lincoln County. Whereas child abuse and neglect is a serious problem affecting every segment of our community, and finding solutions requires input and action from everyone. And whereas child abuse can have long-term psychological, emotional, and physical effects that have lasting consequences for victims of abuse, and whereas the incidence of physical, emotional, and sexual abuse of children, as well as neglect of children, continues at an alarming level. And whereas it is essential that every citizen in Lincoln County become involved in supporting the efforts of parents and guardians to raise their children in a safe, nurturing environment. And whereas we acknowledge that we must work together to increase awareness about child abuse and contribute to promote the social and emotional well-being of children and families in a safe, stable, and nurturing environment. And whereas prevention remains the best defense for our children and families. Now, therefore, we, the Lincoln County Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim April 2021 as Child Abuse Awareness and Prevention Month in Lincoln County, and encourage all citizens to work together to help reduce child abuse and neglect significantly in the years to come, starting with joining in this observance. And I'd also like to introduce, I believe we have someone here today from, let's see, who is it that's here today? Got to go back to the agenda. I think it's Paul from Children's Advocacy Center.
Yes, I'm here today.
Yeah, all right, welcome.
Thank you. And thank you again to the commissioners for supporting the Children's Advocacy Center. I appreciate it.
Is there anything else you'd like to add to the presentation, Paul?
I think that honestly, it's been such a weird year for everybody, and our organization is no different. And you know, while many things have taken sort of a backseat to COVID and the economy and all that stuff, this has been one of those situations as well. And it's unfortunate because the occurrence is still there and the issue is still there, but you know, because of all the other circumstances, we're having a much more difficult time identifying and dealing with it. So I appreciate this opportunity to bring it out to the fore and raise awareness for this.
Well, if I could put you on the spot, I think it was last week when Sheriff Landers presented his annual report. We were talking about that it's been a super weird year, obviously, you know, and there's things that have been impacted kind of across the board. But there's also, as we think about kind of starting to come out of that, there's also things that, you know, might be different, or that we might see large, you know, cases in. And one of those things that I am super worried about is because we really haven't had as many kids coming into foster care. We really haven't had as many phone calls made to the Oregon Child Abuse Hotline. And that is mostly attributed to the fact that kids are not, as easily in contact with mandatory reporters as they were previously when schools were in session and daycare was open and they were doing dance and they were doing sports and they were doing stuff. And one of the things I'm super worried about is that once we begin to open back up, as we're starting to now slowly with school coming back and things like that, that the amount of child abuse calls and kids potentially coming to care and abuse and stuff is going to be fairly profound because those kids have not had contact. So it's not that we got out potentially of having bad things happen to kids, is that we haven't heard about it yet. And I guess I'm curious if you have the same concern, and if you do, what can the public do about that right now? What can we do as a community to try to prepare ourselves for what I'm kind of worried about is being this like tidal wave of cases that we might be facing here soon?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And all of us as centers across the state are really concerned about that very thing, that once more eyes are on the children again consistently, that there's going to be a really significant influx of cases, and it's going to be overwhelming the system at several different points, I think, and we are going to be one of those pinch points. I wish I had a good answer for the question, what can the average person do, other than keeping eyes out for things that look odd and notifying authorities in the right circumstances. Outside of that, we have volunteer opportunities for our prevention program all the time, but the intervention stuff is going to be challenging and a long slog.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that.
I appreciate the presentation, Paul. And if there's no further discussion, I would entertain a motion for approval of this resolution.
I'll make a motion for claiming April 2021 as Child Abuse Awareness and Prevention Month in Lincoln County.
And I'll second the motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's approved. Thanks for being with us today, Paul.
Thank you, guys.
And certainly you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting if you like, but if you have other obligations, certainly understand that too. Next up, we have adoption of the consent calendar, routine items or items we have discussed at previous meetings. Commissioner Jacobson, staff, is there anything that you would like to highlight or remove from the consent calendar?
I would just ask if we could have Casey or Christy, whoever's in control today, scroll down so we can see the full consent calendar. Thank you. With that, I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
And I'll second the motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The consent calendar will stand as presented. We don't have public hearing, any public hearing or decision and action items or discussion and information items. We do, however, have our usual weekly reports, starting off with our COVID-19 update from Florence Portal from our Public Health Department. Good afternoon, Florence, and what have you got for us today?
Good afternoon, commissioners. We have quite a lot of information, hopefully that's going to answer some questions, and please do not hesitate to ask and to interrupt me during the presentation. So let's start with our cases as of this morning. So you can scroll to the next slide, please. Thank you. So as you can see, we're climbing up So we are April 12th, and we already have 63 cases reported of COVID-19. We're almost at the monthly total for February, and we're creeping up on March. And the trend is going up, unfortunately. You can scroll down.
Florence, before we move on from there, anything in particular to attribute this steady upward trend to? I mean, we've talked about the jail outbreak. You've mentioned outbreaks among restaurant staff, but this is probably the number one question I get. Is it visitors, or is it just people being fatigued or careless? Where do we look for that question, that answer?
So thank you for the question, Commissioner Hall. So I think there are a few different contributors, if you want. So one, definitely those outbreaks that we discussed last week. We're still getting presumptive cases. So people who were a contact of a confirmed case and who are now exhibiting COVID-like symptoms. So they're therefore considered a case. So we're having some presumptive cases coming out of the jail outbreak, as well as household members and contacts of staff at those restaurants that we discussed last week. So one restaurant, I believe they had 18 presumptive cases linked back to. So that's one. The other piece that I wanted to discuss a little bit further down the presentation is looking at where those cases are located. And you'll see that there is an interesting northern part of the county clustering. And then we can also talk about the variants, and we're gonna also cover that down the presentation. So in a few slides, I'll get into more details if that's okay with you. Yes, okay. So can you go just back up one slide, please? So as you can see here, commissioners, I was telling you our case rate has been steadily increasing. So we're now well established, if I may, into the high risk category at 143 cases per 100,000 for our past 2 weeks. So there are a few new pieces of information pertaining to the risk level. So if you go to the next slide, we can discuss those. So one of the latest decisions that have been made about the risk framework levels is that for people to move from the high risk category to the extreme risk category, not only would they have to have county metrics for case rates and percent positivity that would be over 200 per 100,000 for the case rate and 10% positivity rate or more, and there needs to be a few additional indicators happening at the same time at the statewide level. So now we're looking at what's happening at the county level and what's happening at the statewide level to make the decision to move counties into the extreme risk category. And those statewide indicators are one that we have over 300 or more, 300 individuals currently hospitalized with COVID-19 and occupying a hospital bed. And if within the past 7 days we see an increase in cases statewide of 15% of more or more, then those counties who were at those metrics countywide would move into extreme risk, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Can I ask a question? I mean, having just seen this for the
Yes.
first time a short time ago, would you say these statewide metrics make it more likely that we'd move up or less likely, or is the crystal ball not clear enough at this point?
Well, I mean, at the current stage, what we can say is that the statewide numbers are, I would say they're increasing steadily. It's not a steep increase, right? But they're definitely going in the wrong direction. In terms of hospital beds, I believe we're doing pretty good. So I think what is going to be important to look at is first look at a steeper increase, because what we and pay very, very close attention as to the severity of those cases, right? So fortunately, because there is more and more people getting vaccinated throughout the state, and as you know, the vaccine is preventing severe illness, hospitalization, and death. So I'm hoping and anticipating that those hospitalizations will remain lower. If it is not, and then I think this is where everybody would get pretty concerned, and it might be because either we're having variants that are coming in, and the vaccines, they're transmitting the virus at a faster rate, and maybe some of the vaccines are not as efficient at slowing or stopping the transmission. And so at that point, I believe that this is when, and also if the variants caught up to the vaccination efforts, even though we're doing a good job at getting the vaccine out there, if we do not have enough people vaccinated, then we might be in a situation that is not going to be pleasant, and where we will have to really reinforce all of those really kind of more restrictive measures, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Hey, Commissioner Jacobson, I should have asked this sooner, but do you have any questions now? And at any point, of course, Lawrence said we can feel free to jump in with questions.
Thanks, Commissioner Hall. I had a very similar question to the one you just asked, so thank you for asking that. And I guess the follow-up question would be, there's all kinds of information out there, Florence, on herd immunity rates, and I guess my question is, where do we get to that tipping point? Where we maybe start to see cases go down because of a higher vaccinated population, especially when you have all of your kids under 16 at this point that are not able to get vaccinated, even if they wanted to be, because the vaccines currently are not approved for children. So, at what point do we start seeing some community benefit? I guess those of us who have been vaccinated, there's a personal benefit, obviously, but when do you start seeing that community benefit, maybe?
Well, I think it really depends on the disease and the type of vaccines you have available to us. The minimum, I guess, benchmark that we set for ourselves in public health to say, okay, if we get to at least 70% of the currently eligible population being vaccinated, we would be happy. It doesn't mean that we would stop there. Like, the more people you get vaccinated, the more protection you provide for the entire community, right? And for possibly those younger kiddos who do not have yet access to a vaccine. you know, for some disease, the herd immunity or the community immunity needs to have about 95% of people vaccinated to be able to stop effectively the spread of disease. So I would say at a bare minimum 70%, and if we could push it to the 85, 90%, that would be wonderful for each age category. And I don't know if you saw, but on the data we're receiving on a weekly basis from the state, it's interesting to see per age range, you have very different percentage of people who have been fully immunized, and the older generations are definitely in the 70s, and some of them in the high 70s. So that's encouraging, and there's still quite a lot of work to do. You know, there's still a lot of people who haven't had yet access to the vaccine. So we're gonna get there. And what's interesting also, based on some of the experiences we've had recently with some outbreaks and things like that, is that we're also seeing that people are changing their minds. You know, at the beginning, maybe they were hesitant or not really wanting to get vaccinated, and then either they got sick with COVID or they know somebody who did, and they're changing their mind. And also they're seeing, okay, well, this vaccine, there are a lot of people who are getting vaccinated, and it's going pretty well. So, you know, that I'm anticipating that those changes in behavior or, you know, are going to happen as well. Any other questions, or would you like me to proceed?
Move on.
Please.
Okay.
Move.
Okay, next slide. Thank you. So one of the questions we've asked ourselves a little bit, especially like, you know, we're starting to talk about variants, and so I wanted to look at, okay, out of all those cases that we've that were reported to us over the past 2 weeks, where are we seeing this, right? And so so as you can see on the map, it's mostly on the northern part of the county, with 29 cases out of Lincoln City area, and then another 17 cases around that area, and 13 in Newport. You can scroll down, please. So then what Susan did, we looked at the variants that have been reported to the public by the Oregon State Public Health Lab. And so as you can see, so we are out of region 2. And as you can see, out of the variants of concerns, we have had 15 cases that have been reported out of the B117, which is the UK variant. And then we have 105 cases that have been reported out of the B1429 variant, which is one of the California variants. And of course, you know, region 2 is not, embeds a lot of counties, not only Lincoln County, but that was interesting to look at, wondering what is going on in our neck of the woods in terms of variants. So if you could move to the next slide, please. So we highlighted B117 and B1429 just because those are the two main ones in our region. And so just wanted to give you a little bit of information about the first one, the one first discovered in the UK, 50% more transmissible than the, let's say, original COVID variant. And also more likely to increase the severity of the disease. And so, you know, more severity means possibly, you know, more hospitalizations and things like that. And then the one out of California, the B1429, is also more transmissible. And some of the treatments that have been used for COVID are not as effective on this particular strain of the virus. So right now, we don't really know what variants in our county. We have a few tests that have been sent out by Samaritan Lab because they were looking at, they found that a few of the samples they had were looking like they needed to be explored a little bit on. So they were sent to the Oregon State Public Health Lab, I believe, last week or the week before, but it takes about 3 to 4 weeks to get results on the variants. So we'll find out more, and you know, we might or might not have any of those variants in Lincoln County, but I think it would be interesting to find out, you know. And another interesting thing is our neighboring county, Tillamook County, is experiencing quite a lot of cases lately, and is one of those 3 counties that would have moved into extreme risk if it were not for the new measures and indicators that we discussed earlier. And so, you know, it's interesting to see Tillamook County is in about extreme risk, you know, and then the north part, the bordering part of our county is experiencing cases. So this might be related, might not be related, you know, those are just kind of like associations or inferences you can make. Next slide, please. All right, vaccines. The exciting news is that we are currently in phase 1B, group 7, and next Monday, everyone age 16 and older will be eligible to receive a vaccine in Oregon and Lincoln County and the country. This is a very exciting news. So now we just need to make sure that we communicate a lot about this, and that we let people know that they will be able to schedule themselves to get a vaccine, and hopefully we're gonna get doses. This is what we need now. It's one thing to say everybody is eligible and can get in line to make an appointment, but it's another to be able to vaccinate those people. So, you know, as you know, we have 3 vaccines now available in the country. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine, 1 dose, and it is for people who are 18 and older. And it's at this time in short supply, and we did not receive any last week, or just a little bit last week, and I'm not receiving any this week. And we're told not to expect any next week. So, but hopefully that will be resolved. This supply issue will be resolved soon, and we'll get some more.
Can you remind everybody why that is, and mostly that
Yes.
it's not our fault for not receiving any?
Oh, of course, yeah. So the reason for that is the big news that made the news, I believe, last week or the week before, was that there was a quality check made at one of the facilities that makes the J&J vaccine, and they, I think, recalled like 15 million doses, and so all of those doses had to be thrown out because they were not meeting the quality standard for the vaccine, which, when you think about it, is a great thing, right? You want to make sure that there is good checks and balances in place and good controls in place, so that we send a product out that is safe and per vaccine formula, if I may. But that means 15 million doses, and that all of a sudden are not available to us. And then, so the supply of Moderna and Pfizer, my understanding is that it has maintained, so it's kind of a steady supply, and the surge of vaccine we were expecting was to come from Johnson & Johnson, and because that has not happened, then the state has to also reallocate the vaccine based on what's available to them that week, and where different counties are in their vaccination efforts. So it's work intensive and really difficult planning operation for everybody. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is
something to cheer about.
So
I'm gonna do a little turkey dance right here in my home office.
We do the dance. So yeah, we're super proud and so happy that, as you know, this is a gigantic effort, right? And everybody, partners, volunteers. We have so many volunteers helping us with this effort, and people being willing to come in and get vaccinated. So it feels really, really good to be in that position, and hopefully we'll keep it up. And the people who are competitive in the team are very, very happy right now. So yeah, we're pretty excited. This feels really good to realize that the work you put in is working, and that we're able to help the community get protected against the virus. So very, very
before slides, I just have to again say that is amazing, and big reflection on your work and everybody at Public Health, but also the work of all of our partners, the ambulance companies and North Lincoln Fire and Samaritan and the Tribe, and just everybody that's been pulling together, and also all the arms, of the public that have been willing, to get vaccinated. You can't, be the highest in the state without people actually being willing to do that. So super exciting, and I hope, I'm a very competitive person in nature, and I hope that we can just keep it up. I like being number one on this particular thing.
Exactly, and the core of volunteers who keep coming again and again and again to help out as well. It is really, it makes my heart proud for this community.
Yeah, this is exactly right, Commissioner Wall. I think really people are committed to the effort, and this is wonderful. Next slide. So also, I think the one of the strategies that we've had from the beginning is really to outreach to a certain population, certain communities, and I think the work that Amy has done, Amy and team, is really amazing. And so we're able to really target certain vaccination campaigns, and so and that's paid off. This week we are focusing on. So as you know, we retired our notification list and wait list. But before we retired it, we had asked so many questions of the people who were getting registered, and one of them was, are you wanting the vaccine to come to you at home, right? Because for whatever reason you can't leave. And so now we're going back through, and we're putting a partnership in place with one of our home health agency to help us this week really go and vaccinate the folks who are still wanting the vaccine, and we're going to be using the little bit of Johnson & Johnson we have left from, I think, our allocation 2 weeks ago, and hopefully serve the folks who who need that vaccine at home. So I'm gonna put a call out for whoever listens right now. And so if you know somebody who is at home, needs the vaccine, please call the call center, which the phone number is, I should know it by heart. Sorry about that. The call center is 541-265-0621. And then ask to be, tell them your situation or your friend's situation. And then they're gonna ask for an address, a phone number back, and if you're available for a vaccine this week, and we could make that happen possibly. So don't hesitate to call, and we'll take care of you. Next slide, please. So in terms of outreach activities, our upcoming focus is going to be really to go to work sites, workplaces, and focus on hotels and restaurants. And for that, we are partnering with Samaritan to be using their bus mobile clinic. So hopefully this is going to be taking place soon. We're hoping to use J&J, so we're going to have to wait until we have a steady supply of Johnson & Johnson. And then the other population of focus are going to be the unstably housed. And so we're thinking about maybe like doing 1 or 2 large events. There's still quite a lot of work to put into this, and also outreaching to the shelters. Next slide, please. So here are the doses that we're getting tomorrow for the county. So prime, we have a total of 1,600. And then next slide. And then 1,600 of booster as well. Next slide. So the scheduling links are on our website. And they're all, the clinics are all listed at getvaccinatedoregon.gov. So people can really, hopefully now, easily access those sign-up links and be able to schedule themselves. Next slide.
I would just say that I think because their system recently changed and there's really not a gatekeeper anymore, especially as we're opening up to the whole population. Like I just had someone text me this morning saying, I can't find the wait list. I need to get on the wait list. How do I get on the on-call list? So I think Casey is on this call, and I think it would be great if we could get some little radio blurbs and stuff out, social media out, just telling people that it's opened up to everybody, you know, as of next week, and there's not a wait list anymore. I don't think the public has gotten that point yet. I think because we did have a wait list for so long and there wasn't enough doses to go around, that they still think that. And so I think if we could do some stuff through the JIC and like I said, we get a little PSA out that you just go to the website. I think people need a little bit of help just realizing that it's a lot more accessible than it used to be when we just didn't have the doses and we had to gatekeep.
Absolutely. And one thing that I forgot to mention, and I apologize, is that finally, and I'm kind of glad that we held off on this because the information kept on changing, but we are about to finalize a mailer that will go out to everybody who has an address and a PO box in Lincoln County. And so on that mailer, it's going to be English and Spanish, and it's going to let people know what to do, who to call, where to go to be able to get a vaccine appointment. So hopefully that's gonna be a good way also to reach out to people and to communicate. And that was an interesting exercise because we had to communicate to everybody, all the ages. So we had to really focus the message, but I think it's a good mailer. All right, so this week we have 8 first dose clinics and 5 booster clinics, and I discussed already reaching out to folks who are at home as well. So that is a lot to get those 3,200 doses into arms. And I believe we're at the end of the presentation.
Thanks very much, Florence. I don't think I've got any further questions. Commissioner Jacobson?
No further, well, actually, no, that's not true. I do have a question. So as we anticipate that the Pfizer vaccine is going to be opened up to ages 12 plus, my understanding is that that request has already been made to the FDA from Pfizer. That's not a vaccine that the county, and I mean Lincoln County, not in the county, but us, the public health, has really had clinics for. We've mostly done Moderna and the J&J. It's really been Samaritan that's done the Pfizer vaccine, I think, because of storage issues and that kind of thing. So, that 12 plus obviously opens up a whole nother category of people. And are we thinking that we're going to jump in the Pfizer game to help Samaritan distribute that to kids? Or kind of what are the plans, I guess, for vaccinations with youth? I know a lot of people say, well, do it through schools, but I think the hope is that you would, depending on when permission was given, that you would have those kids vaccinated, before school starts in the fall, maybe.
Right. So I can talk to you about the plans for the 16 and 17-year-old, because this is what we ought to play with right now. So every week we have to send a survey back to the Oregon Health Authority to let them know how many vaccines we would want allocated to our county. And this week in particular, they had questions about for the 16 and 17, here are the total number of people within that age category in your county. Would you want to get more Pfizer vaccine for them? So as a group, the multi-agency coordination group, we made the decision to ask for 800 doses of additional Pfizer that hopefully we'll get and receive next week. And if that's the case, then we are in really preliminary conversations with the school district to see how we can get the vaccines to the kids on school grounds and possibly using school nurses and all that. So, when we receive those doses, we'll be able to possibly also do a variety of events. We could have events at the schools. We could have special events at the fairgrounds for this particular type of population.
At age 16 or 17, do you still need parental consent for vaccines, whether it be a COVID vaccine or something else, or you can decide for yourself?
So when you're 15 years old in Oregon, you can decide for yourself if you want to get a vaccine.
Great, thank you.
You don't need your parents' consent.
All right, Florence, thanks for a very informative presentation. Kudos to you and your team, the partners and volunteers, for such excellent work. And we'll let you get back to doing that work and move on with our agenda then.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you so much. And our next guest, under reports, item 9B, I'm going to ask Commissioner Jacobson. She had originally requested this presentation, so I'm going to ask her to kind of do some scene setting and then introduce our guest.
Hi, yes, thank you, Commissioner Hall. So I think this was a agenda request back maybe in November or December, but it's been a weird year and everyone's been super busy, and so I think this is the first time that we could just kind of make this happen. I've been a foster parent in this county for a very long time, and just was sort of feeling like the commission and the county can be pretty, disconnected from child welfare. It's a state agency, not a county agency. And I feel like maybe we have maybe stronger relationships with other parts of DHS than we do child welfare. So I just thought it would be a good time to kind of make the connection with the branch manager for Lincoln County Child Welfare. And like I said, just make some connection and hope we'd be able to, build a kind of better, more robust relationship going forward. So with that, I will turn it over to David, who is the program manager for the Lincoln County branch of DHS Child Welfare.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Commissioner Jacobson and Commissioner Hall, for some time on the agenda today. I'm certainly honored to speak with you all. Just for some context, again, my name is David Matz. I've worked for Oregon DHS Child Welfare since 2002 in various capacities, caseworker, supervisor, consultant, and I've been the program manager in Lincoln since August of 2019. Some positive pieces I'd like to at least call out in the branch. Number one, the branch staff is amazing. We have a collection of 40-odd individuals who are passionate about families, about helping children, all with a level of social justice focus that I think really is continuing to improve the services we provide to families in Lincoln County. I do believe that we've starting to see the fruits of our intentional effort towards internal and external equity, meaning finding ways, identifying ways we are getting inequitable outcomes for families and finding ways to change that paradigm, and also internally really creating a more welcoming environment, a place for our staff to explore the systems of oppression that we work in, and figuring out ways that we can shift the paradigm for ourselves and for the families we serve. I think we've also benefited over the last couple of years of a strong partnership with Safe Families. They're a local organization that partners with us to really mitigate the trajectory of some families, meaning they're not going to go deeper into the child welfare system in ways that they might have in the past, by providing supports and other type of resources to families that might not have them otherwise. I'm also, happy to share we have strong ongoing partnerships with many of our contractors through our Strengthening, Preserving, Reunifying Families funds. They continue to provide some great services to families and help us get kids home when it's safe. We're also starting to see the beginnings of a presence of Every Child in Lincoln County, which is another great resource and an opportunity for people to volunteer to support what we now call resource families instead of foster families and those children that they care for. Some notable trends I wanted to bring to the Commission's attention. I think Commissioner Jacobson already referred to this as the COVID-19 bubble, in the sense that there has been a marked decrease in the amount of assignments from the child abuse hotline during the pandemic, which certainly causes many of us some caution in regards to what the future may hold. But certainly if we're comparing 2019 to 2020, there was definitely a significant drop in the amount of child abuse assessments assigned to the Lincoln branch of child welfare, despite like what has already been referenced, that we know that children are likely being exposed to abuse. I think one of the bigger data points that supports that argument is that throughout much of the pandemic, as opposed to teachers and daycare providers being the top reporters in regards to mandatory reporting over the pandemic, we saw that flip, and that law enforcement became the highest frequent reporting party for our child abuse hotline. So certainly it's as we see schools open back up and children have more opportunity to interact with mandatory reporters, we do expect a significant increase in the amount of reports that come our way. Despite that, I think in 2020, we've seen some successes in the branch. Our safe for maltreatment reoccurrence rate continues to stay under the statewide average. It's about 20% below the statewide average at 4.9%. We've seen a significantly low rates of maltreatment in foster care. The national benchmark for that is 8.5, and Lincoln's rate is 2.48. That rate is calculated by the rate of victimization per 100,000 days in foster care. So I think there's lots of great work that's happening in Lincoln, especially the children that we have the opportunity to work with. Over the course of 2020, a similar trend we saw in regards to 2019. 2019 saw about a 19% reduction in the amount of children in substitute care. And in 2020, we saw a 9% reduction. But currently, at least as current as possible, the public data that would have been year-end 2020, we had 88 children in a family setting, meaning 38 with blood relatives or kith or kin, and 40 placed with non-relative resource families. And we've also had 7 children in some form of institutional care, whether that's a group home, a therapeutic foster care, or a residential facility. Let's see, the other piece I think is important for the community to know is that we have a very seasoned staff in Lincoln Child Welfare. About 75% of our staff have worked there at least 2 years or more, with 10 staff, approximately 20% have worked there at least 10 years. So while we do indeed have 11 staff members who have been there 2 years or less, 5 still in their first year, I think overall we have a fairly seasoned workforce, people who understand our model and understand how best to interact with families. Let's see, and I think a question came up earlier for Mr. Kramer from the Child Abuse Center, and I think I could certainly speak to if there are opportunities for people to contribute. There absolutely are, and I would be happy to drop the email website into the chat if that's possible. Certainly is the best site for people that are interested in volunteering, not necessarily with Oregon DHS Child Welfare, that is one of the options, but all of the other ways the people in the community can volunteer to assist families impacted by the child welfare system, meaning CASA volunteers, volunteering with Safe Families, volunteering with Every Child, or volunteering with Oregon DHS. So I'm certainly happy to share that information, and I'm happy to also answer some questions if the commissioners have any.
Commissioner Jacobson, do you have any questions?
Well, first off, thanks for being here today and giving us some information. And I hope we can just kind of continue to do this maybe on a quarterly basis. And I mean, the first thing I would say is I'm really glad to see that the turnover with staff and the Lincoln County office is starting to decrease and stabilize a bit. I think that just frankly helps with better outcomes for families, but also I think it helps in retainment of foster parents as well. So I'm really happy to see that, that's not been as bad as maybe it has been in the future, or in the past, I mean, hopefully not in the future. Commissioner Hall, back to you if you have questions.
I really don't. That this was kind of a wide open learning experience for me. I think one or two, David, occurred to me during your presentation, but then you went on to answer them. But again, I'll join Commissioner Jacobson in saying I'm really appreciative of you being here today, and I hope we might be able to do this on a regular basis, perhaps quarterly. We're talking about setting up quarterly reports from numerous community partners. And if we could have you in that rotation, I think that'd be great.
Absolutely. Be happy to do so.
Wonderful. Before we let David get back to his other tasks, any final words, Commissioner Jacobson?
Just again, a big thank you. Please thank your staff as well. And I would also just say to the listening public that, if you're still relatively at home and, relatively not traveling and doing all those things Florence talked about, man, it would just be a great time to get some training done, to be a foster parent, or, go through all the things you have to do in order to volunteer with any of those organizations, because it's not typically something that you can just decide and then the next day be working with kids. It takes a little time to get training as a CASA or a foster parent or a resource family. I'm still adjusting to the new language, David, but it does take some time, and so now might be a good time to do that if any of you are interested.
Good point. David, again, thank you for being here. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
And you're most welcome. And next up on our agenda is Chief Dahlman on the line. We've got ambulance service area plan proposed revisions.
Good
Hi,
afternoon,
Chief.
Commissioners. I think I'm here.
Yep. The floor is yours.
All right. Well, thank you, Commissioners. I think you were all provided with a proposal of our submission along with a summary of the process and what we went through. First of all, I think the committee wants to thank you for the extension that we got. And I personally want to thank you for that because we have had a lot of things going on and still do. So I very much personally want to thank you for that. The first thing we wanted to talk about, I guess our number one goal when we sat together as the Ambulance Service Review Committee and then the subcommittee is we really wanted to update our plan to a more user-friendly plan, and it was a usable plan. And the main things we looked at was updating our quality review process, making sure that it was applicable to what we are really doing and that the county can review ambulance service and have a metrics to measure it by that really is reflective of what needs to happen. And then in the back, we had a lot of appendices that we put in there that are part of that process, along with quality improvement and how we can improve upon the service that's delivered to the public. We used the Oregon Health Authority's criteria checklist, and when we put this together, we reviewed many plans from around the state, plans that were approved very easily, and plans that had to go through and revise some things. So we wanted to make this, when you present it to the Oregon Health Authority, that they see that we worked really hard and it's met all of their requirements right off the bat. On March 17th, the entire Ambulance Service Review Committee, along with the subcommittee, met. It was a wide range of people, although all from the hospitals, from the providers, and from the Fire Defense Board, and they unanimously approved the draft plan being forwarded on to you today. It's now up to County Legal Counsel to review the plan, make sure it meets all of those requirements that they see. And then once they've met and forwarded on to you after adoption, it moves on to the Oregon Health Authority for their review to make sure that it's met all those. The Ambulance Service Review Committee and myself, we really look forward to working with the Board of Commissioners and County Legal Counsel to amend anything that needs to happen and help with the process. That's really all I've got. I'm just happy to answer any questions from the Board of Commissioners or anybody else that has to me about the plan.
Commissioner Jacobson, any questions for Chief Dahlman?
I don't have any questions. Chief Dahlman and myself have gone back and forth on email several times and had some phone chats a couple of times, and I've talked to Council Yule about it, so I feel like I don't have any questions at this point.
I don't think I have any either. We'll look forward to getting the blessing from our legal team, and then I would assume scheduling this as a discussion information item and then taking action at a subsequent meeting under decision and action. So thank you for the briefing, Chief, and glad you've been with us.
Absolutely, no problem. Again, any questions, you can forward them to you by email. I'd be personally very happy to answer anything from you and Kristen as we contacted back and forth. So we're pretty happy to move this forward.
Great.
A lot of hard work.
I can only imagine. Thank you very much.
You bet, you're welcome.
And now we will move along to Echo Mountain Complex Fire update. County Council Belmont, are you going to lead this off?
City Commissioner Hall, Auxiliary Communications Service Annual Report.
Sorry about that. I jumped over. Yes. Auxiliary Communications Service Annual Report. Devin Wilson and our Emergency Manager, Jenny Damaris. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Commissioner. So my apologies. I submitted my agenda request for next Monday, the 19th. So I think Christy is going to correct your agenda and you'll see us next week.
Okay, thanks for the update. Now we're ready to move on then to Echo Mountain Complex Fire and Council Belmont. Are you going to lead us off?
I will. Wayne Belmont, County Council, and we'll make this a short update on my part. And then I think there may be others who want to add some additional updates. But I'm going to focus this week on recovery and some of the activities we're doing in recovery. And specifically, because the Oregon legislature is in session right now, there's a lot of opportunities that we're finding are coming our direction to really work on some long-range recovery projects. Some of these are capital projects, some of these are services. But I want to just note that it looks like through the legislature and the efforts we're making with OEM, Oregon Emergency Management, locally with our emergency management team, and then with FEMA on the federal level. I just want to make sure everybody understands we're staying committed, engaged, and very active on the recovery efforts for the survivors. So legislatively, it appears that we're being able to submit some additional projects again that may or may not be funded related to wildfire recovery. And so we are working diligently to both identify those particular projects and then put in our funding requests to the legislature. So I want to just say at this point, stay tuned. We'll see what's happening. We've been working very closely with Representative Gomberg and Senator Anderson to assist us in that process. And we have some, let's call it cautiously optimistic outlook that we will be providing some additional funding to work on recovery projects. So with that, I might turn it over, I think at this time, to Public Works Director Roy Kenyon, and he can give you any update he has on the debris management cleanup process.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Roy Kenyon, Lincoln County Public Works Director. I'll keep it fairly brief. Do have some numbers. As of today, there are 72 cleaned sites, and there are 15 additional ROEs that have been picked up in the last week or two that are scheduled for cleanup. So we're getting there. There were some smaller issues with some of the properties, and according to Paul Seitz, the solid waste district manager, most of those have been cleared up as far as the issues, and they're soon to be cleaned up. So things are going well. And we have, looks like, an extended week of good weather, which is definitely going to help with everything else.
And once again, we should probably remind people that today is the 12th and the 15th is the state's absolute deadline for people to submit ROEs. So time's running out. Do you have any update, Roy, on the outreach you mentioned last week that Paul was doing to fire damaged sites where there was no ROE on file, and he was making efforts to contact those people? And he,
well, yes, he did reach everybody that he could. And like I said, we have in the last couple of weeks picked up an additional 15 ROEs. There are some that have not come in, and that was to be expected. But he's actually made contact with everybody that he possibly could. And there was some positive results from that. The numbers did go up some.
Excellent. Anything else?
I don't have anything to add at this time.
Commissioner Jacobson, anything for Mr. Kenyon?
I don't have anything for Director Kenyon, but I do have kind of some Echo Mountain stuff I'd like to report. If you would like me to do that now, let me know.
Sure, why don't we hear from you right now?
Okay, so I would just say that, as I talked about previously, the county put in a direct request to the State Budget Committee for some wildfire-related stuff. But additionally, last week, the governor's office was putting together sort of a master ask for all wildfire-affected counties. After reviewing the master list that the governor's office was keeping of kind of those master asks, it was pretty clear to me that we were probably under asking based on what other counties were asking for. And also just seeing what other counties were asking for made me think about things that we hadn't asked for that maybe we should be. So we significantly increased that ask. It doesn't mean we're getting any of this. It is just an ask, but I sent that document to Sheriff Winters. I know he looked at what some of the other sheriff's offices and wildfire affected counties had done and put money in there. We put in money for increased patrol services and animal services. We also put in a $5 million ask for housing, specifically thinking that many of our people in hotels currently were renters, and those rental properties may or may not be rental properties again. There's also a lot of people living in trailers and kind of substandard housing on those properties, which again, may not be an option for them in the future. And really coming to the realization that we probably will need to build some type of housing project long-term to get these people out of hotels, or even people that are currently in FEMA trailers after 18 months when that's gone. You know, we just don't have the housing inventory to deal with that. So we put in several additional asks, including $5 million for basically property acquisition and building. Again, no guarantee that's going to happen, and certainly as that master ask makes its way through the process, we'll see where we shake out, and then we can hopefully start having some real in the weeds conversation about what that potentially would look like. We also increased our ask for septic services and water services, support for the Grange, and some other stuff as well. So just an update that we're trying hard continually to get more resources out there to hopefully, continue our recovery process.
I have a question for you, if I might. I believe earlier Representative Gomberg reported we had secured $745,000 of about $1 million we had initially asked for. And what is the status of that money? Is that bill still in the pipeline somewhere, or is that guaranteed, or where does that stand?
It's not guaranteed money at this point, and I have not looked it up today, so I don't know if something happened over the weekend or earlier today, but my understanding was as of late last week, it still needed to pass the Senate.
Okay.
So that's where it was at. It was expected to pass, but it still needed to. Our original ask was just under $1 million. And then they yanked my road money out of that request, which makes me a little grumpy, but my understanding is that Senator Anderson was going to try to shove the road money back into that bill before passing at the Senate level. So there was still some hope that perhaps our full ask would be given. But as of, like I said, Friday when I checked at 4 or 5 p.m. and they go all the way to 9, I think right now, it had not passed. So something could have happened over the weekend though, or today.
Okay, something I can share on the housing front. I'm on the board of Northwest Coastal Housing, which secured the grant to acquire the 41 unit motel in Lincoln City. We had our board meeting last week. The executive director, Sheila Stiley, reported that she has hired some maintenance and security staff, but is still in the process of filling positions, and hopes to have the former Paradise Inn ready to open for long-term fire shelter soon, but can't commit to an exact date at this time, but it's close. Do we have anybody else who wants to contribute to the Echo Mountain Fire update? If not, we'll move on to commissioner reports. And Commissioner Jacobson, do you have anything beyond what's already been discussed today?
Nothing to report at this time. Thanks.
Same here. Next up, we've got public comment, and whoever's steering the ship, I'm not sure if it's Casey or Christy, but could we open public comment and scroll through that? Thank you. Okay, a very long list coming in, and I do believe from what I've seen so far, you know, the vast majority of these are related to short-term rentals. And again, Mr. Belmont, I believe you're going to have an update for us next week, correct? With kind of the summary of the testimony submitted at the public workshop last Wednesday?
That is correct. We'll be on the agenda next week.
Okay. Can we switch back to the main meeting agenda then, please? So I think the last thing I need to do is mention that next Monday we'll have our regular office meeting in the morning, the Public Board of Commissioners meeting at 3 o'clock. Then at 5:30, we'll be having our yearly joint session with the City Council and Mayor in Depot Bay. So if there's nothing else for the good of the order, until next Monday, we're adjourned.
This conference is no longer being recorded.